Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show. Joy being an acronym for Just One You, a show that celebrates the unique, special characteristics of the people that I interview. And I just am so excited today. My guest is absolutely phenomenal. But let's get started with our land acknowledgement. As we take a moment to connect, we connect with the land that we're standing on, building a relationship with Mother Earth. She provides for all our relations, no matter where our family originates from. We all have a relationship and a responsibility to the land. And as we come together today, we acknowledge that we work, live, and play on this land. This territory consists of ceded land as well as unceded land that continues to be contested. Canada is home to many Indigenous, diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people, as is the United States. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Miigwech. Thank you. Well, my guest today is Dr. Tracy Brown, and she served 3 years as chair of the governing board for Centers for Spiritual Living Worldwide. She currently serves on the board of directors for both the Science Mind Foundation and Camp Cedar Ridge. She has received an honorary doctorate from CSL and is the only practitioner who has been recognized with the Ernest Holmes Award. Wow. Welcome, Tracy Brown.
Hey, Barbara Jean,
All
Reverend Barbara.
You are a rock star, girl.
Yeah, I've had a lot of rocks thrown at me and survived, right? I think that's how a lot of us earn a lot of the recognition. We put the target on our chest and say, I'll be a leader. And then people start throwing rocks at you. And sooner or later, if you survive the stoning, then
You get the award, the gold star. That sort of speaks to leadership. It really does mean you've stepped out and you've stepped forward, which means you are now the focus of whatever's going on. Doesn't matter if you did it. Might have been somebody 3 rows back, but you get to sit with the love, all the love.
the love in all its forms.
In all its forms, yes. Some of which are nicer than others. So tell me, how did you get to this place of becoming such a big name in the movement?
Oh, wow. We're going to go there. Okay. So, uh, you've heard me say, I think there's a certain amount of insanity required. And so a little bit of that, willing to be out of my mind and say yes to things that other people won't say yes to. And then learning along the way. I have said to lots of people in leadership within New Thought, within CSL, and within corporate settings, you
Yeah.
really do. When you say, I will be a leader, I will sign up, I will take the hits, you do put a target on your chest.
Yeah.
And so you really better love what you're doing
Yeah.
and be willing to not always have it your way. Like to be a leader versus to manage a program or to manage people to get one specific result.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, the snapshot of, I've been in studying and practicing science of mind since 1986 and living it. And for probably 20 years, about 20 years, I did not intend to have a leadership role. I didn't even want to be a licensed practitioner. I wanted to live and to teach by modeling and to integrate the principles into day-to-day life. And I think that is a really important foundation
I
for
agree.
the pathway that ended up happening because I was never attached to visibility, control, power, authority. I was attached to how can I and how do I help others live these principles.
Mm, I love
So,
that.
yeah, then you raise your hand. Tracy raises her hand to volunteer for things during integration, in 2009, 10, 11.
Yeah.
Um, then Tracy raises her hand to say, oh, yeah, I'd like to bring some of my skills forward to help with this project and that project.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, she's raising her hand to say, sure, I'd love to be a part of a collaborative group of leaders.
Mm. And it's interesting when you get into that collaborative group as to how much collaboration actually happens.
Yes.
Sometimes there's some dissension in the group, and there may be members who are not excited about the idea of collaborating because they like their ideas best or their
Well,
way.
I'm sure that is true in the macrocosm. I'm sure that is true everywhere.
I
Um,
agree.
and I work with leaders outside of New Thought. And so I do see that a lot, that the value placed on collaboration does vary depending on people's backgrounds and their skill. And there has been, I would say, over the last 10 years, a real shift to a desire for a more authoritarian, that a lot of people want collaboration, but
Mhm.
there are also a lot of people who just want to, I want to make the decision, that's what leaders do, and so I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, and I'm going to tell you how we're going to solve this, and I don't need to have input from people all throughout the company or the movement or the center. And I don't think either way is all wrong or all right.
Yeah.
Right. But if we say we are collaborative and consensus driven, until we change that, then that's important because it keeps us in alignment with who we say we are as
Yeah.
an organization or as an association or as a company.
Yeah. It is important to see if we can get everybody in an agreement about that. I serve on a board for the People with AIDS Foundation, and what's fascinating about this board is we truly are a family, and we work together so well. And we're looking at dismantling colonialism and changing the entire way we govern, which is going to be, which is like
Dismantling colonialism. Okay. Yes.
So it's a rather large project. Interestingly, our community, we had our AGM this week, and our community is like solid behind us because there were 4 of our 6 board members who were up for re-election, and they accepted the slate carte blanche, and no names came from the floor. Like, it was clear they wanted us back to continue the work, which we were wanting as well, because to add another person would create like a learning curve for them. And so we were hoping we could maintain the stream that we were in, which we got. We got applause all around, and it was fascinating to see the community, because the community could see how they were benefiting,
Yes.
right?
Ooh, and that's so important, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, if the benefit is clear, it's so much easier
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
community to be with you as well as behind you and beside you.
Exactly, exactly. And our whole mandate is, you let us know what your needs and requirements are, and we're going to find a way to make that happen. And given the number of refugees that we've now got in our organization, we have some really big uh, things we need to accomplish, and we're working fervently to make sure everybody's housed in some sort of at least a shelter, but all of them housed, which is really difficult here in Toronto. So there's a lot of things to work on. But what's so rewarding is to see the love that is around and through each and every one of these people, and the journey that we're all walking, because we're walking it together. And we're sort of dropping that hierarchy, going, let's commune together. Let's find out what we all need in order for all of us to feel a sense of success. And I'd like to see that in CSL. I think that's where we need to go if we're going to flourish as an organization, and New Thought overall, because I see challenges in other organizations as well.
Yeah, it's gonna, CSL, Centers for Spiritual Living, Unity, independent large centers and movements.
Yeah.
Right. We're all just microcosms
Of
of
them.
what's happening in the macrocosm in the world as a whole. And so it does require those of us who choose to be leaders to recognize it's not personal. It's not just our individual thinking. It's not just our individual preference or comfort, even. I mean, I think one of the hardest lessons I had to learn very young was that I was going to be uncomfortable, right? Decisions and actions were not always going to be what I wanted them to be. So I had to get comfortable being uncomfortable and recognize that's the time to build a bridge.
Yes, it is.
When I'm uncomfortable, that's my opportunity to learn more or see something from a different perspective or get some input so that I can be better in whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's in my personal job, performance, or whether it is being a leader in an international organization. That being comfortable, being uncomfortable, being comfortable with discomfort, we say that a lot. But
We-
for me, the extra piece of that is not just being able to say, oh, I'm uncomfortable. Oh, okay, well, I'm used to that. It's how do I use that discomfort?
Discomfort. Yeah.
What do I do as a result of that discomfort that moves me not quickly to comfort, but to a different outcome?
And that's the key. It's not to get us to comfort. It's to awaken something within us, to discover a new awareness, a new understanding, and from that place to begin, like you say, to build bridges. I had an idea years ago about this New Thought bridge, and there's this bridge somewhere in the world, I can't remember where, but it's like hands, and it reaches across, and yeah, I'll find the graphic and I'll send it to you later. But it was really interesting to see, it's like these hands holding up all of these people. And I thought that's kind of what we do in New Thought, right? We're not for or against any religion. We're not for or against any group. We're like, let's do this. Let's find a way to meet and our um, to find our joy together. And if we're uncomfortable, and I've been uncomfortable a lot, and I'm okay with that. It took me a while to get okay with the discomfort, but it has served me really, really well as I've been able to navigate it. And yeah, I'm okay with discomfort at this point. It's
Well, of course, I'm okay with it, but nobody likes it.
no,
Nobody likes being uncomfortable, being in discomfort. No, nobody really likes being wrong or not having the right answer or the right information.
true.
Nobody really likes being labeled racist, sexist, homophobic, right? Any of the labels because they have
Yeah,
unconsciously or unintentionally created
yeah,
some miscommunication. No, none of us like any of that.
yeah.
You know, I I have thought about this before, but not lately. Here's what just crossed my mind as I was saying that.
Mhm.
And I know you'll get it for a number of reasons. Maybe one of the best gifts in my entire life, maybe one of the best gifts was growing up as a Black girl in a predominantly white society that made being Black bad.
Mhm.
Because what it taught me very, very young
Mhm.
was that there will be people who don't like you, and it doesn't really have anything to do with you personally or your personality.
Yeah.
And that is not a reason to not go forward.
Yeah.
Being Black, pre-civil rights and during the 20th century civil rights movement, and after, it taught me that, yeah, there can be change. There can be changes for good, but they don't happen by magic or simply by hoping. That me, anyone has to be engaged in that change. And
Yeah.
the third thing being Black taught me was that I had to be clear about who I am,
Mm.
not in defiance of anyone else, but
Yeah.
so that I don't get defined by the negative talk that others will say,
Mm.
because they have their own story.
Exactly.
And in growing up, it was over and over and over again the story about, well, you're Black, you can only do this, or you're Black and you're not welcome in this store, or you're Black and you can't go to this school or be in this class. As I've gotten older and as an adult, it's not always about race. In fact, it's often, most of the time, it's not about race, it's about some other aspect. But the lesson learned to not take things personally and to
Yeah.
focus on the goal
Yeah.
and the shared outcome, right? The
Mhm.
common goal or the common desired outcome. I learned it young because I had to learn it based on race.
Wow. And wow, has that had a powerful effect? It's
Yeah,
interesting how what we would call bad and wrong is often the very thing that
yeah,
frees us to be who we are in this now moment. Exactly. Like all of it. I think of my life and the journeys that I went, which of course are different than yours, but just, abuse and violence and things like that that happened through those years, having a child at 16 years old and all that that brought and, getting married at that young age and having that be bad. It's like all of these things, but all of it brought me here. And in the way that I serve the people that I serve, it is a gift. It is a gift. Yeah, I look at abused women who go back. Well, I know why they go back. They go back because they think they're the problem and they can fix that. I mean, they're
yes,
mistaken, of course, which I now know, but I can't judge them for it because I was there. And it's, we begin to learn from that journey. And then we stand as women today going, okay, we can be advocates, we can be strong, we can lead because we have had the stones thrown at us and we've
yes,
survived it. And
yes,
not only survived, we are thriving. Yes, yes, yes. It's so true, so true. But I love to hear that point of view because I see such strength and wisdom and brilliance in you. And that obviously came from your life. That's how you got here. What brought you to
it's,
Science of Mind?
say that again.
What brought you to Science Mind? What brought you to New Thought? And sorry, I interrupted you there. We both started.
Oh, it's great. So when I was 15, 16, so I was raised I was raised in a Baptist church that
Yeah.
was dually affiliated. It was affiliated with both American Baptist churches, which is a predominantly white or organization, and it
Hmm.
was also affiliated with National Baptist churches, which was predominantly Black. So
Okay.
we were a predominantly Black congregation, but we were affiliated with both groups.
Yeah.
So when I was 15 or 16, I began to be frustrated, not just from my individual church, but the Baptist movement locally and nationally, because I was exposed to both from a racial perspective and participated in a lot of events. But there were a lot of things that were happening, and I was like, this isn't in alignment. Or there would be ministers who would be having affairs with, church staff, and it would be in the newspaper, not the minister at my church, but other churches. So I got really disillusioned and frustrated when I was in my teens. And then I went to college at 16. So when went away to school, one of the things I challenged myself with was to visit as many different kind of churches as I could. And most of them were different Christian denominations, but I briefly dated someone who was a Muslim, so I started learning about Islam. And
Yeah.
then 1920, I don't even remember how I got exposed to Buddhism and Taoism, and I started looking into the Eastern traditions. So by the time I was in my mid 20s, I had basically created my own, I didn't call it a religion, but my own devotional practices. And they were a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I had spiritual practices, and I read and studied a lot.
Yeah.
So fast forward about 10 years, when I was in my mid 30s, I worked in a place that required me to drive by Unity of Dallas almost every day, 5 days a week. And I had read books by Deepak Chopra, and I had read books by Marianne Williamson, and I had read Course in Miracles, and I had read a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were bringing people to speak, and they had this huge sign out, and I was like, oh, Deepak Chopra, I'm gonna stay after work that day, and I'm gonna go to this program.
Yeah.
So after hearing about 5 or 6 different speakers who were really new thought or metaphysics or
Yeah.
quantum physics, I was like, wait a minute, this is a church. What kind of church brings these kind of speakers? Because they're so different from each other.
Yeah.
And so I started going to Unity Church of Dallas. But this really is the pathway that got me to Centers for Spiritual Living and Science
Yeah.
of Mind, because the senior minister at Unity Church of Dallas at the time was Dr. Donald Curtis, who is CSL, Science of Mind trained directly under Barker,
Yeah.
served on the board of directors that was in office at the time that Founders Church in Los Angeles was built.
Wow.
And and so what I didn't realize until he left was that he was actually teaching science of mind.
Yeah.
And so maybe about 18 to 24 months after he left, and there had been some other Unity ministers, I was like, but this isn't quite the same as good. And it
Mhm.
makes sense to me, but it's missing something. And I didn't know what it was
Yeah.
until I did some research. And then that is what really got me into science of mind. And I actually it was engaged with both Unity and Science of Mind for over 20 years.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible, because they really are. I mean, they basically have the same foundation. Like, I'm ordained in both, and they have that same foundation, but many of the Unity speakers are going to be maybe more Bible based, than some of the CSL speakers. I mean, some are more Bible-based, but for the majority, I think, are more, I don't know, a little more, I don't know what word I'm looking for. I'm looking for a word. I can't find it. It's my senior moment.
Well, and the other difference, having really lived and, grown in both movements, is my experience personally and by observation, is that the new thought piece, the thinking, how we think, how we use our thoughts are things, how we use our mental capabilities in order to manifest and the law of attraction and things like that.
Yeah.
All of that is pretty much the same. And my experience is that in CSL, no surprise that the branding turned up and recommended the name be CSL, or Centers for Spiritual Living. I find a much stronger focus on how do we actually live this, integrate it into our everyday way of being individually and collectively for the impact we can have on the world. And that unity is very much, and maybe it is because of the connection with Christ as the example, with Jesus and with the Bible, there's still a little bit more separation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not unhealthy separation. So
No.
it's like I have no real criticism about unity. It's just it's a real subtle distinction.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm
Exactly.
comfortable with both, but you have to understand the subtle distinction. So yeah, I speak at a lot of unity churches, and I'm always really aware of, okay, let me go back to the 5 principles and
Yes.
ground in that, because I'm speaking to unity. And when I'm speaking at a CSL center or community, right, I go look at the 14 Declaration of Principles
Absolutely.
and ground in that.
And ground in that. That's incredible. Well, we're going to take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. So for those of you watching, don't go away because there is a lot more to come. And be sure to stay tuned because we're going to be back in just a minute. You're watching The Joy Show on the New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Home Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome back. You're watching The Joy Show, and my guest, Dr. Tracy Brown, who's just given us all kind of great information. And as we're moving forward here, when I look at the New Thought movement and what it actually brings to the world, what excites me the most is the challenge to be responsible for your own path forward. That's probably the most important CSL thing is you create your reality. It doesn't mean you're to blame for what's going on, but however, you are responsible. And with that, you have the power to change just about anything that's happening in your life.
Amen. Amen. Ashe.
Amen.
Oh. Yeah. And I think that another piece of that for me has always been the recognition that because all of us are connected to the one source,
Yeah.
that means that anything that I desire and anything that I want is also impacts everything and everyone else that's connected to the same source.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of people, stop at that point of, yes, it's about me creating my best life, not realizing or accepting the reality that whatever I create in my life has an impact on everyone else's life as well. So I am not just an island in the universal expression of life. I am responsible for what I do and how that impacts others.
Exactly. One of the things that I like to really help to land for people is when I'm having positive thoughts, I'm actually, or I'm in a place of productivity or doing well, what happens is I'm lifting everything. And when I'm in the ditch, I'm pulling it all down because there's only one thing going on. And because I'm a part of it, what I do matters. And yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that's it's kind of a hard concept to really get for some people, that although you and I are we're thousands of miles apart right now, and yet we're one. I am you, you are me. There is no separation. And yet it appears that there's separation. When you look at Democrats and Republicans right now, there appears to be separation. It's really loud.
There is humanly designed, humanly enforced, human attachment to. We are separate, we are distinctly different, and we are enemies.
Yes.
But we don't think of the cat and the dog as enemies, or maybe in some families they are, but we don't think of the terrier and the dachshund as enemies. We just think of them as they're two representations of dog.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so, yeah.
So Maria has said that the other people lie, hurt, cheat, steal, and let us down is our own fault. No, it's not our own fault. Not at all. Not at all. The energy that we put out day by day and moment by moment is impacting everything. And the people who are, who are being really, really negative, yeah, they're drawing down the collective energy for sure. But those of us who choose to look at that from a possibility of, okay, now what can I do to lift? There becomes that shift in perspective that can begin to move it forward. So I'm not to blame for what's happening in my life. Pardon me. I'm part of the human collective. And the human consciousness is vast. And there's a lot of people who think lying and cheating is perfectly okay. And then there's some of us who think, no, it's not okay. And so, who's right? Well, depending on your perspective, you might decide, well, it is right for me. But what happens is what we're doing is we're in this oneness. And so everything I do is impacting everything and everyone. So if all of a sudden somebody around me is lying and cheating and stealing, and I'm having a reaction to it, then I'm sort of in the ditch with them. But if I can sit back and go, wow, let me look at any areas in my own life where maybe I have been a less than honest, I can pull that up. Or, if I'm diagnosed with some disease, it's not my fault I have the disease. There is a consciousness of that disease. And I'll use breast cancer as an example. I don't know about the US, but in Canada, you can go into just about any store. There's pink ribbons everywhere. You go into the store, they say, will you donate to breast cancer? My answer is absolutely not. I'm not going to donate to breast cancer. Now, if you would like a donation to the research that will help to heal it, prevent it, and change it, maybe there's something we can talk about. Or maybe what we should be focusing on is let us focus our attention on putting our money towards wellness and well-being for not some people, but all people. And let us take a look at the medical profession, and maybe we shouldn't be creating one baseline that came from the adult white male and sit back and say that that's how women are going to create, like heart attacks, for example. Men are going to get the pain in the chest down the left arm, not women. And maybe other races are different too, and how it's going to show up. So in what ways do we begin to take our power back and go, yes, some of this exists, but it doesn't have to impinge on my life. I can begin to think in a new way. What do you have to say about that, Tracy?
Oh, well, I agree with you. So I'm sitting here going, uh-huh, 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 check,
Yeah.
check, check. But and two things come to mind. One, so this idea, oh, Maria, I love that you use the word fault, because a lot of times when we see things or experience things in our life, whether it's our direct life or whether it's the life of the country or the world, a lot of times we spend a lot of energy on why did that happen? And, yes, what did I contribute to that? That's a very valuable journey to take. If I'm in a relationship with someone and it's not working, yeah, I want to look back to a certain degree. But the real opportunity is to go, okay, I can't change it because it's happened. This person has done these things, or I have done these things,
Yeah.
and I can't go back and change it. So, what is it? What's my choice going to be now? And instead, what we do is we look back not only to understand it, but to point fingers. You're to blame. It's all your fault. And what that does is it puts it, I'm now a victim. I'm now a victim to whatever someone else did, or even what I did when I didn't know better. And 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 many of your viewers will be familiar, with the drama triangle, where we operate in the drama triangle and create all kinds of unnecessary drama because we think either, there's got to be a victim. Well, in order to have a victim, you have to have a villain.
Yes.
A person or a party or a system that is the villain. And then you're setting up a situation where there must be a hero. The hero or heroine is the one who, comes forth and saves the victim or comes forth and punishes the villain. And in
Yeah.
the meantime, all three are not working cooperatively together to get to the shared or common goal. We're pointing fingers at each other. And it's like, I don't have time for that anymore in my life. I
Like,
haven't had time for that for decades in my life. I'm always about, what are we trying to get to?
yeah.
Let me ask questions and figure out what needs to happen, not to, or what has happened. I want to understand where we are or what has happened, not
Mhm.
to place blame, but to know, what are we working with here, that our next step. Like, I can't take the next step if I don't know where I'm standing right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's a whole different thing than trying to find fault, place blame, and it keeps us in victim mode. And when we're in victim mode, we cannot find solutions, because all we look for is what someone else has done that's wrong or hurtful or makes me afraid. And
Yes.
I didn't realize I cared so much about this until I started talking. So I am going to give myself a homework assignment to do some journaling about this, because I think one of the things that also made the bridge to Science of Mind and CSL so easy for me is that when I was 15 or 16, I was in a class and the teacher asked us to choose a motto for ourselves, for our lives.
Yeah.
The motto I chose as a teenager was, "You always have a choice."
Mm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that.
I didn't know that decades, many decades later, it would still be my motto. I
Yeah.
always have a choice about how I'm going to show up. I always have a
Yeah.
choice of how I'm going to deal with someone calling me the N word. You're right. It's not my fault that they are demonstrating racist behavior. It's not my fault. I didn't attract it. They're being who they are in the world,
Mhm.
just being themselves.
Exactly.
But what I attract is based on my understanding that I always have a choice. Am I going to cuss them out? Am I going to ignore them? Am I going to try to educate them? Am I going to have a conversation and say, "Tell me more about, like, what you mean?" Like, what
Yeah.
am I going to do
Yeah. Because we
other
always have a
than
choice.
victim? Right. Because I always have a choice.
Yeah. A friend of mine, a teacher from years ago, would always say, there are no victims, there are only volunteers. And I think sometimes we step into something without full awareness of what it might cost us. And we were talking earlier about leadership, and how when you step into leadership, you may not know that you've now put a target on yourself.
Yes.
Um, but nonetheless, it has happened. And it's not your fault. It's, a leader has decided to step out front and be the front person. Well, that person is the one who's going to enjoy all of the repercussions and the joys of stepping into that position, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like. And so we're all kind of learning and growing. And wherever we focus our attention, that's what grows and expands. And that's one of the things that we sometimes forget. And somebody said to me, I think it was maybe in the Wednesday show, might have been Gina Walker, and we were talking about the election because it was the day after. And she said, I'm not surprised. Well, I'm surprised by the outcome, but not surprised by the outcome because of the amount of focus on Donald Trump. All comedians, every news channel, every story. I mean, it was Like, and what we teach is where you focus your attention, that grows and expands. And absolutely the attention through the whole thing, whether it was criminal charges or whether it was whether or not he would win or what he had said or done, it was a huge focus and it manifests accordingly. Where do we
That
focus our attention?
that is an interesting metaphysical consciousness. Like, oh, yeah.
Oh,
I have to do some journaling about that too. And I'm going to publicly say in this moment that I will probably not give you credit
good.
for, well, because I won't remember where I heard it first.
And I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was Gino, but I'm not sure. So,
well, this quote that I'm going to be quoting you on is leadership has both rewards and repercussions.
yes.
Like what you said right before the
Perfect. Yes.
leader, it's like, because I love alliteration. It helps
Yes.
me remember things I want to remember. And so it's like, oh, a lot of people go into leadership for the rewards that they anticipate or expect.
Yes.
But we need to prepare leaders for the repercussions
Yes.
of whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time, that you've got to be prepared to navigate both.
And I don't think we teach that.
We don't
I
do
know
it.
as a minister, I didn't get taught that. I'm sure as a practitioner, you did not get taught that. And I remember hearing from Dr. Kennedy Schultz when I was in ministerial training, and he came to speak to us, and he said that if there is anything else in the world you could do, like flip burgers at McDonald's, please go do that. Now, he didn't explain fully what that means, but he did warn us. And I just want to make note of what Maria has just said. She says, thanks for the answer. It really means the world to me in moments like this. Just see it more clearly now. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. Maria, thank you for the question in the first place. That was powerful, remarkable, and we needed the question in order to arrive and get you to this answer. So God bless you. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah. So this journey. Go ahead, honey.
So many people mistake things that happen, mistake the law of attraction as everything that happens I am attracting to me, versus I'm using the law of attraction to direct the energy in the universe toward what I want. But there are over 8 billion other people who are also directing the universe by their actions as well as their desires. So a lot of what we experience is simply the expression of all of humanity coming forth in that one person or that one thing, or and then our responsibility is to stand firmly in designing and choosing what we want and what we want our experience to be.
Absolutely.
So I do that on an individual level. And because I live in the US, but I think if I lived anywhere in the world, I would be doubling up on my practice of how the kind of world I want to live in. And that is not tied to any individual person who is elected or not elected. That is tied to what values and what behaviors, right? And what kinds of policies, maybe not the specific, but what kinds of policies would exist in the world that I want to live in that delivers heaven on earth.
Yes. That sounds like a nice place to live.
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah, I have moments. I have
Yes.
moments where it's heaven on earth, when my new dog is licking my face all over, I quite, believe it or not, I love it. Um, it saves me on makeup wipes. No, I'm just kidding. But but it's like it's allowing each moment to be fully realized. And so what I'm learning for myself is that if I can be present with what is, then I can choose what I want moving forward. And it frees me to not live in fear, but to live in a place where I'm working creatively within the universe to create a type of life that honors my own strengths and attributes, the uniqueness that I am, and allows me to bring that to the world in a way that can be received by others in a positive and uplifting way, which is my goal. Am I always perfect? Absolutely not. I do my best moment by moment, but that best moves, right? It shifts, and some days are better than others. And so it's, how do I show up? A woman said to me the other day, I decided to step out today as my soul self. And she said, and then I come in this pet store and I met you. And I went, oh, it was the sweetest thing. And I went, tell me about your day. And she talked about just, noticing the trees and the changing leaves and the people that she was coming in contact with, and just the joy she was experiencing, because she set an intention leaving the house. I'm going to show up as my soul self today, rather than in this human, where we judge and criticize and do whatever we do. But I thought it was just the sweetest thing. And one of the first things she saw was this beautiful rainbow in the sky, even
Mm.
though it hadn't been raining. It's like, wow, where did that come from? And she's trying to get to the end of it so she could get a better picture. But she said, everywhere I went, it was the same. The sky.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was really fascinating, but beautiful. It was like a really lovely connection to have those conversations with people. My daughter, who's 19 now, gets a little upset with me because when we go for a walk, I talk to everyone we pass, and she's like, "Why do you do that?"
Oh my gosh.
And I said, because I want to smile at people. I want to say hello. I want to say, how's your day? Are you enjoying the weather? I said, so many wonderful things come from that. And we had an experience where we needed to change lanes, and there was a cab driver beside us. And so she rolled down the window and she said, would you let us in? We have to turn. And he went, no. And she was like, shock hit her face. He burst out laughing, and he goes, of course I'll let you in. And he's
Oh,
laughing, and we had such a laugh. It's those tiny moments. If we could live more in those, where we notice the things that are going on, whether they're painful or beautiful. The painful can be beautiful. It takes us places that are really remarkable. But I think if we can live in those places, that's the joy of having life.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. I love that you do this show every week and take all of us into, just a few minutes of focusing on joy. I love the acronym, right? There's just one you. Each one of us is unique.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just that. And I can see you speaking to each person and seeing them as a unique individual and being truly interested. But
Mhm.
I am with your daughter. Like, okay, now I know I'm not going shopping with you. I am not, I know the introvert in me will love people silently.
I was walking through a park one day, and a gentleman was sitting on a bench reading The Godfather. And I looked over and I went, whoa, I read that when I was a teenager. And he looked at me and he said, that was 50 years ago. He said, you couldn't possibly have read it when it first came out. And I went, oh, I love you. And he was He goes, I love you too. He says, and you look great. And the girlfriend I was walking with, I think she was crawling into her jacket trying to.
So
But
I wouldn't be embarrassed by it. It would just be like, I can't imagine me doing it. The introverted would drain me. I can walk. In fact, one of my spiritual practices, I don't think you know this. One of my spiritual practices is when I'm doing grocery shopping or shopping in a store of any kind, that I put a smile on my face. And I don't go talk to people. I don't care if they have a smile on their face, but I smile as I shop because I used to be in such concentration that it would look like I was upset or angry. I'd be like, do I want that one or this one? But now it's like I've just trained myself. And I have had people then speak to me.
Yes, they
and
would.
that doesn't bother me, but I wouldn't initiate it unless it was someone I was like, the cashier at the store. I'm going to speak to.
Yeah.
I'm not going shopping with you.
We'll travel together, but we won't shop together. Oh, I talk to people on airplanes too. We're down to our last 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes. What is the most important thing you think people should take away from today's show? How would you like to wrap it up?
My favorite quote. Every day is a donation to eternity. Even an hour is a contribution to the future. Repeating, every day is a donation to eternity. Even an hour is a contribution to the future. And for me, that is every one of us in our journey to being our best selves. We're making a contribution, whether it's positive or negative is really up to us, right? And whether we're in service or whether we're complaining or whether we're blaming or judging, that's what we're contributing to not only our lives, but the lives of all of humanity. So let's choose. Let's choose.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. I think too, for me too, is, what is, and we can't change what is, but how we think about it creates the next step forward. And that's where, we can do something different. And I think looking at each other from a place of oneness, can we start to see that? And I know it's a bit of a challenge, but I want to invite anybody watching that if you're feeling separate from your neighbor or maybe a family member because of political views, I invite you to open your heart and just understand we all think a little differently, but it doesn't make us bad and wrong. We're all on a journey of awakening and expanding. So let's follow Tracy's lead and make our choices lifting ones rather than draining ones. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Dr. Tracy Brown, you are so wonderful. I love you, dear. And I'm so, so grateful that you were on the show today. I think this show was stellar.
Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, my true blessing to have you here. And for all of you who have watched and all that will watch later, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your comments. And be sure to come back again next week when we do it all over again with a new guest. So thank you for watching. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. You're watching The Joy Show on the New Thought Media Network. And I'm Barbara Jean, and this is Dr. Tracy Brown, and we love you. God bless.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.